Ray.
Yeah, looks like you've got a little bit. There you go. There you are.
Um, okay, so we have these templates laid out with training that's required of the technicians in order to move up in their grant levels, so they get more salary as they get more training and more time in with their districts. And they are updated on an annual basis. Not sure what's happening here. So we do quarterly reviews with them as well. We have templates that we use, and I had an example of our forestry assistance program, but basically there's questions that we ask the technicians and their managers that comes directly out of the grant language. There we go. And it's also a time, you know, meeting with them 4 times a year. It gives us an opportunity to just see how they're doing, what they've been up to, congratulate them on their successes, see if there's anything that they could use. And then lastly, we this year did a forestry assistance program camp. And we basically brought all of the foresters together and gave them a really in-depth 3 days of in-class and field-based training. It was really successful, and we're hoping to start this on an annual basis and kind of move it around the state.
Thank you, Rachel. So, Christy, are you next then? All right, that's Christy, are you back with us? Sound check with Christy. Hi, Christy, are you back with us? Oh, we've got some sound problems with Christy this morning. Christy, are you with us?
Yeah.
There you are, Christy.
There.
Fire away. I believe you have.
All right.
Yep.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
We've got you now. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. So I am going to talk to you a little bit about our process for developing training for managers and directors. So starting off in the spring of 2019, our staff did a strategic planning process where we identified mission and vision and value statements that help to outline the work we do with districts. And through that process, we took a look at some of the tools that we were using for districts. And we decided that we really needed to update some and then also add some additional tools to be more effective in our work. And we started with the operations handbook, and we looked at the content of the operations handbook, and we eliminated some chapters and we streamlined the content and we added some chapters. And then in the fall at our annual convention with districts, we opened up an opportunity for both district managers and board members to review that content and give us some feedback. So currently right now we are taking that feedback and coming up with a final draft of the operations handbook, and hopefully in the spring we'll be able to go ahead and release that to the districts. And then we also, Ray, I'm going to try to move it ahead, but
okay.
And you can go ahead and move one more.
All right.
Because I skipped right by you.
One more. Operations handbook.
One more slide. Yeah, sorry. So another tool that we decided that we really needed to develop was a standardized procedure for orientation of both district managers and of board members. And we use a similar template to this for our grant staff. So we went to this concept where we have a timeline and certain tasks that we want to get train these district managers and board members within the first year of their service. We also looked at the concept of linking those concepts to the operations handbook so they can refer back. We also had a tool called the capacity building tool, which we had been working on and off for years, but we actually never solidified it to the point where we were using it in districts. And as you can see, I had a section on legal requirements, and in the next slide, you'll see that it gives an example of some sample policies that we'd like districts to have. And then the next slide, you'll see, so that the idea is then we set baseline expectations for what we want to see in all districts, and then we look at effective practices, and then hopefully we want to be all districts to be moving into that high performance category. And so this, we would sit down, the dream would be we would sit down and do this with a district manager and hopefully the chair, and then at the end of the tool there's a spot where we would then identify goals. And then they have a place to work towards. But we had never implemented it. And then in the next slide, you'll see what happened as through this process, working with our partners, we were directed to a new type of option, which kind of linked all of these documents into one document, which was the example we were given. It's linked to like an operations style handbook, but then we had a chance, they made it an interactive tool, which then every training piece could then be linked to the operations handbook. So our dream is eventually, as you'll see in the next slide, is to actually have some pages down the road that would be added into the operations handbook that a board could track some of the policies that they had and the training they did. And we would have this, this idea of what they currently have and then their action plan built into the operations handbook. And in all honesty, this will not be built into the current version. It probably will be one more year before we see this all come together. And then the next piece that we did is the quarterly review for our operations. And all districts, whether they have a grant or not with us, we do this quarterly, and we are in the middle of reviewing it. And what we decided is, I apologize, my 5 minutes is up, but that we would actually use that capacity building tool as the framework for our new quarterly review, and then determine the needs of the district through that and how often we will meet with them and how we meet with them. So we're still in the process of developing this, and we are certainly very interested in hearing about other states who may be using similar concepts in their programming. And thank you.
Outstanding, Christy. We appreciate that update. And thank you, Rachel, also for the update on the grant technician, employee development, and manager and director training programs.